All right, so here we go. Impromptu live stream, impromptu crowdcast. Farrah and I have been
Yeah.
doing these very off the cuff, really off the cuff, a couple of times on Instagram. We decided, well, let's do something a bit more formal to talk about Kimura Hana-san. And so we moved it over to the crowdcast so we could
Yeah.
have it recorded for posterity and also upload it to the YouTube later. So thanks
Yeah.
for people who are in attendance. And Farrah, you want to introduce yourself really quickly?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Farrah. I'm from Washington, D.C. I lived in Japan for over 6 years. So before I moved to Osaka, I lived in Shizuoka and Hamamatsu for 5 years.
Awesome.
Yes, and soon I will move to Tokyo for graduate school in the fall. So
Woohoo!
yeah. And
Hopping
I'm a
all around.
huge Terrace House fan. Yeah.
Yes, huge Terrace House fan.
I'm
So.
a Hana Kimura fan. I dyed my hair pink because of Hana. Yeah, I'm a hardcore fan.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, maybe let's dive into it. Unusual protocol for folks who are watching here. So if you have any questions or comments, you can just leave them in the side scroll over here, and we will. Farrah's on her phone because her computer is old, so she's not going to look at the comments. I'll look at the comments, and we will incorporate whatever you have to say or whatever questions you might have. So I think, Farrah, you wanted to start off by just giving a little bit of a biography on Kimura Hana-san. So why don't you take it away?
Yeah, sure. So Hana Kimura was born on September 3rd, 1997, in Yokohama, Japan. Her mother, Kyoko Kimura, paved the way for a lot of female fighters in Japan, especially. So her mother, Kyoko Kimura, is a renowned MMA fighter and a female wrestler. And she only retired, I believe, 3 or 4 years ago. And Hana is half Indonesian. So her mother, when she was doing like MMA fighting and competing, she traveled all over the world. So I believe Kyoko Kimura lived in Mexico for some time, and then she went to Indonesia. She met an Indonesian man, married him, and had Hana in 1997. And within the same year, she got a divorce in 1997. And so growing up as a mixed race person in Japan, Hana was half Indonesian, but she didn't really have a clear connection with her Indonesian roots. She didn't know her father. She didn't know the language, and she'd be constantly asked if she did. And actually, throughout Hana's life, she didn't want to be a wrestler. Like, she constantly said she didn't want to be a wrestler. So on YouTube, I found this interesting interview she did when she was 6 years old. It's really, really cute. I think I sent you the link.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it has the timestamp on it. Are you able to pull it up here, or should I just summarize it?
I'll just summarize it.
Oh, okay. So there's a really adorable interview on YouTube, and Hana appears on TV at 6 years old with Kyoko Kimura, and it's mainly an interview between Kyoko Kimura and Isao. Isao is another famous wrestler who Kyoko Kimura ends up marrying, in a secret marriage when Hana is a teenager. So yeah, that's the interesting part. And so when Hana's 6 years old, the interviewer asks her lots of questions. So they're like, "Oh, you're gonna be a wrestler, right?" She's like, "No, I'm going to be a marathon runner. I can run fast, you know." And then Kyoko, she emphasized that Hana's more interested in dancing, gymnastics, jumping, things that are more artistic or not artistic, but more take more action compared to fighting. So for a long time, and Hana briefly mentioned this on Terrace House, but she did dancing for a long time. She did hip hop dancing, her entire life. She did dancing, yeah. And she mentioned this on Terrace House. I think some wrestling fans know that. So when she was in high school, I believe there's a Wikipedia article of Hana Kimura in English, but I think that some of the facts are wrong. So it says that she went to a college, but actually Hana Kimura dropped out of high school when she was a teenager. And this was, I'm not saying like this was the reason, I don't know the reason, but this was around the same time that her mother had married Esau in the second marriage and got divorced, I think 2 years. So it was around that time that she was in high school and then dropped out. And so she mentioned this on Terrace House briefly too, that she never finished high school, but she was deciding what career she wanted to pursue. So even though dancing was a hobby for her, to find a stable, productive career that was not in a company, she outwardly said that she would hate working at a company because she's too unique and she wants to be creative. Like she wants to have creative control over her work. So she decided to pursue wrestling. And so when she was around 18, she enrolled in a wrestling like dojo and started competitive wrestling there. And then when she graduated, she had to decide what her persona was. So when you're a wrestler, it's similar to acting in a way. You're portraying a character on the stage and in the ring. And so there are baby faces and heels. And and this magazine I'm going to show later, it talks more about her character change. So originally Hana was a baby face. And this magazine shows old photos of her. So it shows her throughout time. So this was when she won a very significant match in 2019.
Unfortunately, I think your camera is a little spotty, so it's a little hard to see.
Oh no, okay.
Yeah.
But basically, so imagine, so when Hana started, she had a baby face personality. So she was more coy and shy on the stage. And her outfit was totally different. She had black hair, not her natural hair, and she wore a kunoichi ninja outfit that's red and black. So when you Google images of her, like in a red and black kunoichi outfit, that's more of her debut of what she looked like.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And later on, she changed her character. So she briefly went to Mexico, and she decided to switch to cybergoth, which was very different. And this is the kind of the image that she ends up being later on. Yeah.
Right.
With the fluffy leggings, and why she looks like a raver, it's because she totally changed her style, and she became a heel. So when you're a heel, you're more aggressive and vicious in the ring. And when she debuted on her 19th, like a little bit after her 19th birthday, she was known as the Mysterious X. And she debuted under this promotion, which is, I guess, the team or the company representing you. It was called Wrestle One. And it's significant because there's not that many women in Wrestle One or even in wrestling in general. So because the promotion she was under did not have enough women's matches, she had to go to matches outside of her own like promotion to compete. And she also joined the Odotai. So Odotai is an organization her mom founded or co-founded. And she won Artist of Stardom, which is a very prestigious award. And this was only within her first year of winning. But in January 2017, she got an injury around her hand and she couldn't fight anymore. So her promotion did this special rule in wrestling called the Free Bird Rule. And in WWE, it's called the Free Bird Rule. And basically, when you compete for a title, someone in your team or promotion can take your place because of the injury or something.
Oh, okay.
So a wrestler named Viper stood in for her, but she still lost the title. So as soon as she got the title, she easily lost it. And because of her losing her title, she changed it a lot. So some people in the wrestling community had mixed feelings about her. They thought she was hyped up because she was actually very attractive and very young. But actually, she was really a really good wrestler, and a lot of wrestling fans can confirm this. And she obviously like acted cute and friendly on stage, but it was to play up what she already had. It wasn't to hide any weaknesses she had. But yeah, in late 2018, she went on a tour in Mexico, and she switched to cyber. Sorry, she switched to cyber goth. But she had a lot of problems when she changed her image. She wasn't able to sell merch. She started acting more cocky in her persona on stage, and she got a lot of negative feedback. But she didn't complain at all. She listened and she changed her persona again. So then she changed into a more like sexy, vicious, like kawaii personality. And her wrestling and her performance in wrestling was more like a comedic one. And her identity as a hafu connects to what she did for wrestling by far. So she started and joined the Tokyo Cyber Squad. But the original name for Tokyo Cyber Squad was the International Army. And yeah, and the reason why she created the International Army was because she wanted to unite the misfits. Like the whole image of Tokyo Cyber Squad and International Army was that we will take the misfits, we will take the foreigners who are not accepted, we will take fighters no matter what like part of life or what country they are from. So she wanted to make a safe haven for foreign wrestlers in Japan. That was her goal. And so there were two foreign wrestlers. I believe their names are Bobby Tyler, Sadie Gibbs, and Jamie Hayters. They were one of the originals who joined her squad. And in 2019, so very recently, she defeated Jungle Kyona, who was part of another faction. And when she created the International Army, she had Jungle Kyona join right after she defeated that person. she defeated her, and she had Jungle Kyona join her team or her faction. Sorry for the wrestling fans. I'm misusing terms probably, but she joined her faction, which is a little like a mini team behind it.
Right.
And later on, because it grew and grew, it actually became a majority of Japanese female wrestlers. So that's why they decided to change the name to Tokyo Cyber Squad. And the image behind Tokyo Cyber Squad is that they're silly and fun and original, and they're entertaining at the same time. And it's quite different from other factions in Japanese pro wrestling, especially because when you're in a faction, you're kind of like a army troop or a team. So you have the same kind of personality or appearance, and you try to be very uniform even in terms of your persona. But with Tokyo Cyber Squad, the whole thing was that everyone is an individual and everyone's a unique person, and we're trying to promote diversity and trying to promote acceptance for being different. That was the whole mission of the faction Hana Kimura led. She was the leader of this. And the slogan for Tokyo Cyber Squad is everybody is different, everyone is good. That's Tokyo Cyber Squad, yes sir. And they do this pose before they start fighting. And that's their philosophy. So in the first episode of Terrace House, she kind of has a lot of Easter eggs. So if you're a fan of Hana Kimura already, you would have already known this. I didn't know this until like later on when I was trying to read up stuff about her. So in the first episode, she was asked why she joined the show, and she said that she was looking for someone to join her mission, or her mission was to have someone come with her and be her partner or something. But it sounded very like a military person. And she was like, I'm looking for someone. And this is the pose they do when they start like Tokyo Cyber Squad.
Yes, sir.
And she's like, yes, sir, I'm searching. And so she kept doing that. And then there's this member named Ryo, and she develops this really adorable crush on this basketball player named Ryo. He plays for this Yokohama basketball team. And she sees him, and like she's like trying to hide that she like has any affection for him. And she's very like cute and shy in Terrace House. And when she joined Terrace House in September 2019, she explained that she wanted to introduce a whole different kind of audience to women's pro wrestling. And she also wanted to find love. She actually doesn't have that much experience with love before she came on Terrace House. So she revealed the fact that she only dated one guy officially before coming on the show. And this was when she was in her late teens before she debuted as a wrestler. So, or started wrestling anyway. So she said she was dating this guy, and he said that he was very against her pursuing pro wrestling at all. So he said, it's either pro wrestling or me. And she's like, pro wrestling?
Easy decision. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Like, okay, thanks, bye. Thank you, next.
Yeah.
And that was the only relationship, at least that's what she said on the show, that was the only relationship she had. And constantly on the show, you see conversations between her, Jungle Kyona, and Konami, the famous wrestlers that she's teammates with. And you see them on the ring, but you also see them outside of the ring as women. And they're talking about this dynamic of how they struggle to find love and acceptance in dating outside of the ring, because people feel emasculated when they're with them, and they hide their profession when they go to Gokon and stuff, because that's not accepted in Japan, as in their opinion. So
gotcha.
Yeah, I went pretty long, but that was Hana Kimura's
Thank you.
profession. Yeah,
thank you for the very thorough summary.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll jump into a few things. I think I might bounce around a little bit here. You, and if you don't want to talk about this, it's fine, but you took a lot of flack online because you came out.
I did. I don't mind at all.
Good. You took a lot of flack online because you came out and you basically said, Hana being half Indonesian was definitely a factor in all this. And I was wondering if you could just talk about your thoughts around that and why you posted that.
So when I posted this, I was very upset about what happened with Hana, obviously. I stand by what I said. And what I said in this tweet was that Hana was definitely targeted for bullying in general because she was half Indonesian. And it was because of several reasons. So I noticed that the people arguing with me, they never watched Terrace House and they never knew about Hana as a wrestler anyway. So I've gotten several responses saying that, nobody knew that she was Hafu. Nobody knew this. No, that's the thing about cyberbullies. They're very calculative and they pay attention to every move you make.
Oh, yes.
And yes. So in the very first episode of Terrace House, Hana is asked, I think Hana asks a foreign member or a Hafu member of the house, their ethnic origin or their hometown or something. And then she says, "Oh, I'm half Indonesian. My father's Indonesian." She doesn't go on about her mom being a single mom. She doesn't go on about any other things. She just simply says, "I'm half Indonesian." That's it. And so if you're a Terrace House fan, or if you're just a viewer of Terrace House, of course, you're going to know that she's half Indonesian to begin with. And also in her wrestling interviews in the past, especially when she created or when she started to lead for Tokyo Cyber Squad, she brought up how she was treated really horribly as a child and growing up in Yokohama as a Hafu, and how she felt different from other people because she was a Hafu, and how being half Indonesian really made her feel like an outsider and a misfit. And she wanted, her mission with Tokyo Cyber Squad essentially was to not feel like a misfit anymore and to feel loved, right? And because she talked about her identity and how it affected her growing up in Japan, that's especially why I said what I said. And but I do kind of understand why people went off, especially because they didn't read the thread. They just read the first tweet.
Right.
But I don't know. Yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry.
No worries.
What was I saying? Yeah, so it's hard to pinpoint exactly, but yeah, as a half Indonesian, she did bring up her race before, and yeah, I meant to say that constantly if you're a minority in Japan, you're going to be targeted for bullying a lot more. And I used to work at a high school in Hamamatsu, Shizuoka, and it was a public high school. There were over 1,000 students. and a huge percentage of them were Filipino, Brazilian, Nikkei or mixed race Japanese kids.
Mm-hmm.
They were the ones who were mostly targeted for bullying, and they had the highest dropout rate at my high school.
Oh. Mm.
They would drop out within their first year or two at my high school. You know, and knowing the fact that Hana is one of those kids, that she represented that part of Japan that you don't see in mainstream media, says a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so Hana, like, in a way, like, yes, she is unique, but she's also representative of a serious problem in Japanese society. Because I've seen cases like hers before. I've seen my former students have self-harm scars. I've seen my former students pass away. I've seen my students have bullying issues that she didn't explicitly disclose, but I'm pretty sure happened to her when she grew up in Japan, especially in 1997.
Yeah.
So to say that racism is not a motivator for calling a woman a gorilla, to say that racism is not a motivator to, you know, exclude a mixed race Japanese person in a Japanese majority space, it means like that person doesn't understand how, especially children, interact with each other, or how people interact with minority groups here in Japan. You don't see people like Hana or Tupas or other members of Terrace House on TV. That's why I like Terrace House so much, because they showed all of these mixed race Japanese people and ethnically non-Japanese people like Vivi on the main screen, interacting with each other in the same house, getting along really well.
Yeah.
You know, and you never see that on TV. And that's what I loved about Terrace House the most. And I do agree with all the criticism Terrace House has gotten, a lot of it, but I think some of it is a bit misguided. Like, it wasn't 100% bad. And actually, most of Terrace House wasn't even that dramatic. I think it was just the way it was promoted in Japan. And the scenes that, and also another problem is on Netflix, you're not allowed to take screenshots or share footage. Right?
Don't even get me started.
You know, so I couldn't take screenshots or footage, but there are many heartfelt scenes Hana has to understand her identity more. Like, there's a episode, if you don't want to watch like the whole season of Terrace House, I highly recommend watching Tokyo 2019 to 2020. That's the season, right? This season. Episode, don't start with the costume episode. Start from the beginning when Hana came in. Start from episodes 27 and 28. Those are the best episodes ever. So in episode 27, I believe it was 27 or 28, there's a member named Tupas, and he's full Filipino. He actually used to work at a factory in Aichi, in Toyohashi, which is one town. He's a few towns over from Hamamatsu. Like we have mutual like family connections. Like you know you know. And he won this TV competition, and he ended up being Lily Frankie, like the famous like Lily Frankie's personal assistant before he came on Terrace House.
Wow.
Yes. He grew up and he grew up in a very rough household. His father left him, and in this one particular scene, he's crying so much, and he's drunk. And he talks about how he's not lovable, he doesn't feel loved, and he doesn't know how to love other people because he doesn't know what it's like to have a father, and how Lily Frankie was a father figure to him. And Hana, she's nodding and listening, but when you realize how Hana's life is so similar to Tupas's, and how she was listening to what he was saying, you realize that she was able to have this dialogue with someone who had the same experience as her that she probably couldn't have had when she needed it before Terrace House.
Right. Yeah. I have not been watching for several years, but I did watch.
You're watching.
My wife does, so yes, or did up until now, but I did watch the first couple of seasons, and that was one of the things that always struck me about the show was kind of there was always like a kind of an international complexion to the cast. I remember one of the earlier seasons, I think it was an Asian American woman who was on. I completely blanking on her name, but it was really interesting because there's a few exceptions, I think, on Japanese TV, and then in like morning shows and things like that. And, you've got like Robert Campbell, you've got Dave Spector, and you've got a few of those folks who are doing more like the serious commentator role over there. But a lot of times foreigners are, let's be honest, included for the laughs and the giggles.
Yeah, they are.
So it's really nice to see the show where, both Japanese and non-Japanese cast members came in, everyone speaking Japanese to each other and just like kind of being ordinary and getting along. And I really take to your point about, not a lot, usually to like nothing like really terribly dramatic happened. We did an article about Terrace House like a year ago, and we're like, why is everyone watching this boring show? Because when you compare it, seriously, when you compare it to like Survivor, you compare it to Big Brother, you compare it to like American
it's
Trash
not that
reality
crazy.
it's not that crazy, and there's like a really wholesome quality about it, or there was to it, that I think that's the element that really dragged everyone in. It really did get closer to the feeling of, oh, we're just looking in this living room, or at this dining room of 6 people sitting around a dining table and actually just talking about their lives and figuring stuff out together and occasionally falling in love. When it worked.
Yeah, exactly. Like one of my favorite, well, he used to be on Vine, now he's big on YouTube. His name is ProZD. And he does voice acting and stuff. He's really cool. He did this one, it's very short, like a few seconds clip, like that's a parody of Terrace House. And he was like, what Terrace House is actually like. And he basically says, hi, how are you? I'm great. Want to grab dinner? Okay. Like, scene. And then dramatic music. That, like, I'm not trying to stand for Terrace House. I do understand there are some issues behind it, but overall I think they did a lot of progress in mainstream Japanese media in terms of minority representation.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So let's talk about some of those issues a little bit, because honestly, I've compiled a couple of links and been reading up on some things, and the more I kind of read up on it, the more there's a sense of like there's this like kind of perfect storm of events that just kind of coalesced that led, or at least like heavily influenced the events that happened and led to us losing Hana. So I know, like, I think it was earlier this week, or this week. Yes, this week. I'm sorry, time has lost all meaning.
It was like 8 days ago.
I think there's a set of dueling articles coming out, a lot of dueling articles coming out, and you can kind of like, you can feel like the production team and the various Juma show are kind of behind this, putting some of this stuff out there. But Seven Post came out with that initial article that was pretty explosive, interviewed current and former staff, and they basically said, oh yeah, there's no script, but there's a story, and told tales of things like producers and staff influencing the direction of events. There was one former staff member who alleged that there actually used to be a kissing bonus of 50,000 yen at some point, which apparently, according to that staff member, eventually got dropped. But also occasions of people or staff, basically telling people, do this over again, but be angrier, like, come at them harder this next time. And also some talk from the current staff that there was maybe pressure put on Hana because she was in some ways already an actor, because she was a pro wrestler, and pro wrestling is, like you said, a lot of it is actually acting. And so there's probably some pressure on her, and probably a lot of pressure that she put on herself as a result of that. But there's also been dueling pushback against that. So today I tweeted about the article. It's an interview with Chan Momo, who was in Takeuchi Momoko when she appeared on the show. Is now an idol. I think she was in Battle Jump Daimon and in a couple other groups. But she basically flatly denied the term in Japanese being used for this is yarase giwaku. She denied that there was like any kind of forced forced scenes or forced acting or compelling the show's cast to act one way and another. And she made what I thought was an interesting point. She was asked, like, did you and the rest of the cast get, Hibo Chusho? Did you get, slandered? Did you get defamed? And she was like, Oh yeah, all the time. But the
Yeah.
difference I think we had was that we were together in the house and we
Yes,
had
I
each
think that was
other
a
to
big
lean on.
difference.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Hana she got cut off from the show and the cast and was in her own apartment. She was
Because of
cut off from her
COVID-19.
wrestling career because of
Yeah.
COVID-19, right? Circumstances like beyond anybody's control. But she was basically,
Yes.
the support network that was there for cast members like Chan Momo and others in the past was not there for her.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. To go off on the how fake Terrace House seemed to be, I agree with it to an extent when I saw the articles, because later on in this season things became a spectacle. So I don't know if your wife has told you about Shacho.
Shacho?
Shacho.
No. Shacho.
Okay.
No.
So in the most recent episodes, so like the latest part of the series, there's this Japanese guy named Shacho who comes on the show. He replaces Ryo when Ryo, the basketball player, leaves the house. And he runs his own company, and the company itself is really nice sounding. Basically, they intervene and help people leave their jobs and confront their companies when they want to leave the company. Yeah, sounds good, right?
That's probably a needed service.
Yes. So at first, when Shacho came out, I was like, oh, he seems cool. Okay. It's kind of cute, maybe, But then he starts acting very creepy and aggressive towards one of the female members named Yume. And she's an office worker, I believe, but she also is a grab your model, and she does car shows and things like that. And there's this one particular hashtag that he created, I think, to make fun of what he did in the beginning of when he came on the show. It's called Bean Sui. And basically it was the bottle incident. And when he came on the show, he was talking to Yume, and he gives Yume this beer bottle and she drinks it. And then in front of her, he takes the same bottle and like drinks it, but it looks like he's making out with the bottle and then puts it back on the table.
That's bizarre.
Yes. And then it escalates more and more and more. So, spoiler alert. Well, I think everything in the cast will be a spoiler, but
probably.
Yes, but this is important, I think. So there's a notorious scene where he takes Yume on a Christmas date in the Illuminations, and he basically forces her to kiss him, and she keeps pushing him away and refusing. He's like, no, 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 I bought you this lip cream. And I got personally offended when I saw the scene. He took out this brand name like lip cream. The brand is Jo Malone. It's a really nice brand, very fancy. He takes a huge dollop of the lip cream and forcefully like puts it on her lips.
Wow.
Yes.
And no one ever thought at some point, like in the whole crew and the production, it's like, oh, maybe we should stop this.
Yeah, and then he continues to kiss her, and then the panelists, they kind of make fun of the scene, but they don't really specify like, hey, this is sexual assault or sexual harassment. You're forcing her to kiss you.
Right.
And this has happened multiple times on Terrace House. This is not the first time. So the previous season, Opening New Doors, there's a famous Terrace House star named Sena. Sena is actually from the very original like Terrace House, boys and girls. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, spoiler, she continues to be single, and she joins the house in Opening New Doors. So like the season before this one. And there's this member named Shohei. He has very big Detective Conan-sized ears, and he sings in a band. And they go on this date, and I think she's really drunk, and he forcefully kisses her, and she keeps pushing him away, but he keeps, In America, or anywhere really, this is sexual assault.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, absolutely. Quite
And
obviously.
yet when that happened on Terrace House, the panelists didn't really reprimand him for doing what he did. It was considered as a joke. Like, oh, haha, you're making a woman uncomfortable. You're making a woman feel pain. And you're forcing this physical act on her. Haha.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
There wasn't really an open discussion about how gross it was or how demeaning it was. And even on another thing that I have a problem with Terrace House was the gaps, the time gaps. So in Japan, we get a new episode, or we used to, not anymore. We get a new episode every Tuesday, and then there's a week break. So, and even then, the footage that was filmed that would be aired is like I believe, maybe 1.5 to 3 months gap from when it airs in Japan.
Yeah.
Outside of Japanese Netflix, if you have a Netflix account outside of Japan, you're not gonna see episodes every week. You'll get a batch of, I believe, 6 episodes.
Right. They release them in chunks. Yeah.
So already there's a huge gap between not only Japanese-speaking fans or with English-speaking fans, but there's also a divide between fans in Japan and fans outside of Japan. And Terrace House is a huge international following. And some people, you know, they use VPNs, but majority of them don't. Like, they just watch episodes as they come. So there's this huge gap of knowledge, and there's not really a proper online discourse to be had when these episodes air. So when I saw this, I was so confused, and I would go on Japanese Twitter, and people are making fun of what happens, like as a meme almost, but there wasn't too much of this direct call out. Like I didn't see the same energy about Hana with Saya running, like with anything else wrong with Terrace House. Like, I didn't see this kind of call out when a member got sexually assaulted. I didn't see this call out with, you know, other problematic things that happen on the show. Especially in Japanese. And even then, I only saw, I believe, 2 English articles about the sexual assault, like in opening new doors. And I think, and again, there's this time gap, and the only English publication saying anything was maybe a staff writer from Japan Times, and maybe Reddit. But of course, you know, if you're behind and you don't want to get spoilers, you're not going to read that Reddit thread, right? You're not going to read that Reddit thread, you know, as soon as that episode happens. Yeah, like there was a lack of an international dialogue because of that time gap, I think. So I feel like, and in the most recent episodes, I believe the last episode that aired in Japan was episode 42, and 43 and 44 were supposed to come out, but now we won't get it. Shacho continues to do creepy things, and there's a scene where Shacho and Yume get drunk in Hokkaido, and I remember exactly how Terrace House Japan promoted the new episode. So on Twitter, I saw this really disgusting image. Of course, it's all erased on Twitter now because Terrace House Japan deleted everything on their social media. But there was this scene, and so it has the Netflix logo, and it says airing on Tuesday, blah, blah, blah. And Shacho is basically putting Yume in a chokehold and forcing. So Yume is like this, and Shacho is trying to kiss her, and it looks so violent to me.
Wow.
And that's the picture they use to promote Terrace House on Twitter and on Instagram. And, you know, I never see, and that I think it's a slap in the face to the Terrace House fans too, because it just makes us look like, you know, we love seeing women get assaulted on TV, and we stan, you know, when we don't. You know, we are against that. And this was not majority of the scenes. This is not to say that it wasn't wrong, but those scenes put me off the most because they seem so different from the flow of conversation happening in the show. So that's why, like, with the allegations, I wouldn't be surprised if it was true for those particular scenes, because they seem very forced to me, and they were the scenes being promoted, not of Hana falling in love, not of watching Hana's match, or not of like really positive things. They were focusing on marketing based on trash TV elements that were not present in most of the episodes.
Right. And I've wondered how much basically the position of Fuji Television with respect to other TV stations in Japan has been driving this. So you look into it, Fuji has not had a good strain of years these past few years. No, it basically has like two things going for it right now. It has the fairly successful Suits, so Japanese adaptation of the NBC drama, which is actually pretty darn good. And then it has Terrace House. And Terrace House, more than being a hit, is like an international sensation. It is another thing that I'm kind of depressed about with this whole situation is that, I'm a Japanese drama fan, because because I'm a masochist apparently. But there's some really good stuff there, and unfortunately, because of like combination of production values,
it just puts you off on Japanese media, I think too.
Like, yeah. But basically, Japanese drama doesn't get like the same sort of international attention that, for example, Korean drama gets.
Yes.
And it's a real shame because some really good shows just end up getting like, not noticed, like stuff like, Dede and Sande Negumi and things like that recently that have been just like stellar. Nobody outside of Japan gets to know about. So here you have this one show that people outside of Japan are also incredibly interested in. But I think that in the end, you talk about those advertisements, and I think we'll find out a huge driver of this was that Fuji has just been seeing its income go down kind of year after year. It's not holding up against Nitere, which is kind of like the dominant power right now. It hasn't had a lot of hits. It gets a lot of criticism online that they're very show while play, that the people in the Fuji Television staff and the upper echelons in particular simply don't understand what people want to watch today, and thus aren't creating programming that people actually want to watch. So you add that to this equation, and you basically have Fuji probably wanting to take its one hit and do whatever it could with it. And, particularly from the kind of things you described, it sounds like it was trying to really egg up the drama and turn Terrace House into American reality TV.
Yes, it's like, it's the saying, like, don't fix what isn't broken. Terrace House was fine as it was without the creepy sexual assault or the creepy fights that happens.
Agreed.
Yeah. So like, and even in the beginning of this year's series, I actually didn't really like it. I almost stopped watching because I noticed, for example, like on the members' social media, they weren't posting pictures together. Like it was obvious that they weren't really friends with each other, even though they've been living together for many months. And they didn't have that chemistry I saw in previous seasons of Terrace House. So I think maybe viewership also went down. And also another thing, I saw Jake Adelstein's article on Daily Beast, and I didn't know this because I'm not, like, I usually just watch Terrace House on Netflix, but Fuji Television on May 18th, they re-aired the costume incident episode on TV.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, and that was the major kikkake. That was the major cause of the recent kick-up. And that's something a lot of people have called Fuji Television out for, because it's like, you guys knew what happened when this originally aired on Netflix, and if you re-aired it, what was going to happen in terms of the social media abuse. So that was a totally preventable decision. I think one of the other factors that I actually hadn't realized, and I'd known this news, I'd heard about it like months ago, and it kind of fell out of my brain. So the commentators, so the cast who's sitting in the studio.
Fukui.
The Fukui.
Fukui.
Tokui. Yeah. So you've got Tokui Miyoshi, you've got Yamasato Ryota, you, and Turin Dororena, all sitting in the studio, basically acting like us, the viewers, and being kind of like our Greek chorus for this whole thing. And there's like a real charming quality to that. And one of the commenters, Tokui Miyoshi, was like one of the more, particularly when you like contrast it into Yamasato, was very much like more kind of equal in his judgment and like a kind of like an even-handed commentator. But he has not been on the show for a while because it came out that he had like something like over Ichioku-en in undeclared income in his business. So he had to kind of step away from into the shadows for a while. But there was an article in J Prime that where some people were saying, oh, that's another potential factor here, is that the commentators were out of whack. The balance was the force was disrupted, because this kind of key member wasn't there to provide that balance that he usually provides.
Yeah, I think Tokui's departure definitely had a lot to do with it. I noticed the chemistry or just the atmosphere amongst the panelists kind of changed when he left, because what mostly happened was, and also Tokyo was one of my favorites, he would bounce off jokes between Yama-chan and Yu, one of the members named Yu. And without Tokui being there as like an icebreaker or like having a funny reaction or like a clever insight, it's like something was missing with the panel, in my opinion. I've been rewatching this season of Terrace House because I'm writing some articles about what happened. And I noticed that they deleted this one audio segment where you can hear the commentary. So in Netflix Japan, there are two audio options with the Terrace House episodes. I don't know if this audio option is available outside of Japan, or if it's I don't think there's even any subtitles for the other audio options.
I think there are the Japanese subtitles in the US version.
Okay.
Yeah, they keep the Japanese, anything Netflix produced keeps the Japanese subtitles as an option when it's on US Netflix. I don't think probably the commentary track is not available. I don't know, we VPN it, so don't ask.
Okay, yeah, so usually when I watch Terrace House, there's one that's regular Japanese audio, but then there's another Japanese audio option where you just hear commentary. It's similar to a DVD commentary, and they're commenting throughout the show, not just in those panelist cut off scenes.
Right.
And I believe on the 28th or around that time, on top of deleting everything on social media, they deleted that audio option from Netflix Japan for only just for the 2019-2020 season. They deleted that option.
Right. They want people going through it, doing analysis and being like, that's what did it. Yeah,
but I'm glad they kept the show on Netflix so I could observe it from a new perspective and see if I missed anything. But from what I recall, I don't remember anything that panelists saying being overly attacking Hana or anything, even in the costume fight episode. Actually, they were justifying that, like this meant to her in the wrestling ring, and she's overly upset. And also, like, who hasn't been in a fight with someone they cared about, because or someone they've lived with in the same house, like there's a difference between having a fight or being misspoken or saying something that unintentionally hurt someone and eventually moving on, than having it recorded and having it viewable for anybody to see and being constantly reminded of it. Like, it's being human times 1,000.
Right. Yeah. Visible to millions of people all over the world. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing about the costume episode was that the person who accidentally messed up her costume was someone Hana dated, like on the show. So there's a lot more friction because of other elements that happened before the costume. So it wasn't, I don't think it was merely, her anger didn't just come from you know, having her costume ruined. I mean, a lot of it was, but it was also because she dated this person and this person wasn't who she thought she was, or they had problems living together. So again, and when she started dating this person, Kai, she was already heartbroken from being rejected by Ryo, like this other male house member. And Kai was the one who mainly comforted her and told her that she was lovable and should find someone who would accept her, and it doesn't matter if she wrestles or not, and that wrestling was cool. And like he made her help not feel ashamed of it. And having this fallout, and also like in the actual fight, she didn't just bring up the costume, she brought up how there's a lot of tension in the house because apparently he wasn't cleaning enough, or he seemed like he wasn't working when she was working nonstop, because especially at that time she was really busy with her wrestling job because she was practicing 3 times a week and at Terrace House maybe 2 or 3 times a week for filming. So she was overly stressed because of work. And when you watch the show or episode, you can see that there's all this pent up anger she already had and that other people had. And I remember seeing some comments about it on social media in Japan. Obviously, like these episodes did not air abroad yet. But like even now, like when this happened, like people still hadn't seen the costume episodes. So they had no idea about the context behind it.
Right.
But basically, yeah, people were saying horrible things. They called her a hysterical gorilla. They drew crude comics of her as this big, ugly being, like beating up Kai when she didn't beat him up at all. Like what happened was she was overly upset and she cried and she said, "Why aren't you saying anything back to me? Why are you just saying sorry? Why didn't you reply to my chat messages? Da 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 da." And then there's one scene that all the cyberbullies attacked her for was when she goes up and like starts talking to him and she's like, "Why are you wearing that stupid fucking hat?" And like cybercritic, "Why are you wearing that stupid hat?" And she flips it off of his head because she was just angry. And maybe she was overly upset about it, but it wasn't, I don't think it was like everybody just took that one tiny moment, few seconds of her life or her scenes and they just relentlessly attacked her for it. And it was pretty cruel. And there was another comment that was on Twitter, I believe. It said that it's no wonder she couldn't find anyone to date on Terrace House because she emasculates men and she'll probably do domestic violence on her future partner because she's a wrestler. Like very, very horrible things towards Hana.
Right.
Like they were attacking her femininity. They were attacking her on some levels just because she was an angry woman on TV, having a human emotion. If she was a man, she wouldn't get that much hate, I believe.
No, absolutely not.
No.
Only women do when they express emotion like that.
Like I did not see Japanese netizens having the same energy when Shacho did those things to Yumin. I mean, yes, actually, Shacho did get criticized a lot in Japanese, but whatever attacks Hana gotten, it was prevalent. Like if you can't even go at that time, especially you couldn't go through her hashtags or her username without finding a lot of visible posts against her.
Right.
Whereas Shacho's social media, it was more structured. So I think he's in charge of his own social media or something, because if there was a negative comment or something, it would get deleted or it would get taken off very quickly.
Gotcha.
And that goes into Hana's agency, like to what extent Hana's agency should have been held responsible for making sure she was okay.
Right.
Because as far as I know, unlike other reality shows in other countries, Terrace House did not provide psychological support for their members. And it seemed like whatever social media support the members had, besides sponsorships, it was all on the member and their own personal agency.
Right.
So the fact that Hana's like tags were visible, the fact that her comments were still visible, and the fact that her social media accounts are still active and people are still commenting in these accounts post-mortem. That says a lot about, especially when, that article I translated yesterday about how her agency decided to remove all affiliation with Hana post-mortem and removed her, from the website on the 27th, 4 days after she died. And it might explain, I don't know if it's true, but it might also explain why her content had been removed on the Terrace House official social media accounts. Because it was removed on the 28th, I remember.
Okay.
So
I think a lot of people are going to end up having a lot to answer for, and I'm hoping that we get a lot more information over the coming months as people continue to dig deeply into this. Yeah, I think we will too. So we're gone almost an hour here, which has been great, and it's been a great discussion. Thank you. But I just want to maybe wrap it up. Your thoughts on the future of the show. Does it come back?
I'm really concerned about the show, to be honest. There's a really good podcast called No Script at All. It's in English. And they officially announced that on their Facebook page a few days ago that even if Terrace House came back, that they wouldn't cover the show again.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
And a lot of Terrace House fans who have been dedicated fans from the beginning, they were like, we're not going to watch the show again, especially after what happened. So I think the show has lost respect and reverence from their own diehard fans. So I highly doubt the show might even come back, especially because they've already lost their panelist Tokui. They've already had a lot of mishaps because of COVID-19 and everyone being isolated. Like they couldn't even have proper filming or episodes even before this happened.
Right.
So I think if they were to come back, they really need to properly apologize and have more support for their cast members and be more transparent with the audience about where the support is coming from. Because, besides, having the panelist commentary and saying we have our condolences, they quietly deleted everything without announcing that they deleted things, for example.
Right.
So if they were to come back, I might watch it to support the members, but I think Terrace House needs to, give more support to their members. Otherwise, if you're not supporting your members, you can't really support your audience either.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you're right. I think it's going to come down to, I also think it's going to have to be a full accounting. One of the not accusation, but I guess one of the things people are getting angry about right now is basically, you think you can just cancel it and leave it like that. It's being seen as, Fuji kind of like ducking responsibility for not having to answer to anything. So I think if, Fuji and the production company, the agencies, if they don't come to account to this and something that people feel approximates the truth doesn't come out about what actually happened and the failures are properly identified, then I don't see how it can get public support again.
Yeah. I think Fuji Television has a lot to work on, and there's also all these accusations coming out against like the writers who work for Fuji Television and against the commentators and
Yep.
Yeah.
So time will tell, but it is not looking good.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
But I hope this opens Japan up to cyberbullying laws in particular. I know in the US, people have been charged for murder for triggering suicides after cyberbullying. So I noticed a few days after Hana passed away, there were actually Japanese politicians and lawmakers saying that there needs to be a law in Japan to combat cyberbullying because it also happens to a lot of Japanese teenagers, and we do have a high suicide rate. We're the number 14, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's 14 or 15. I think you're right. Yeah, the U.S. is not too far behind that, as I remember, like 18.
It's like
19 or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so. I really hope. I'm a little skeptical of anything coming from the Abe government right now because it's sort of in free fall. So I think it's.
I didn't get my Abe no mask.
Burn it down, tear it down. No, I think it's sort of in free fall right now, and it seems to be grasping at anything that it thinks can kind of like rescue its image. It's taken a whole huge beating over the COVID-19 response. It took a huge, massive beating over the public prosecutor scandal, which actually ended up being kind of amusing. So thanks, Abe. But they're in free fall. They're down in the 20s in terms of public support. Which if you're in that territory for 6 months, you resign. The administration ends. That's the historical pattern in Japanese politics. So I hope it's more than just talk. I hope something's done. I think that the American laws could be a lot more strengthened as well. I think every country in the world could be doing a lot more to address cyberbullying.
Oh, definitely. And I'm really happy that a lot of pro wrestlers and celebrities, they're also coming out and addressing the issues that led up to Hana's death and spreading awareness about mental health. So
yeah, and a lot of people seem to be willing to pony up a lot of money as well to find out who are the people who are involved in the worst of the abuse against Hana as well. I think you'll see some news come out and some people will be held to account, which is a good thing.
That's good. Yeah.
All right, I think that's all I had.
Yeah.
That's good. We did an hour. Wow. And
Yay.
we had a steady group of people watching. Everybody who has been listening, thank you very much. I'll leave the crowdcast open for replay for a while, and then we will get it up on YouTube within the next week or so. So, Farrah, you have an encyclopedic knowledge of Terrace House and have given Hana. So it's really great to get all that perspective. Thank you so much for sharing it with us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Have a good day. Yes.
Day.
Yes, and I'll have a good night.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Al. Thank you.
Oyasumi.
Yes, bye.